Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. Sorry I'm a bit late. Eric and Luke, thank you for being the two best moderators in all of YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot do this. I cannot do these live streams without your support. So your support is greatly appreciated via live stream to my super chat. Thank you so very much. And ladies and gentlemen, very interesting topic. So to my super chat, thank you. My moderators, thank you. Very interesting topic, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Levin earlier this morning stated that our beloved President Biden should be impeached and removed from office. And he said that he simply wasn't addressing or acknowledging the existence of laws, a great many laws, and that's true. There's a difference between having a hardline stance on certain topics and then just not addressing the laws at all. And so Mark Levin was saying his argument was this man is basically out to lunch. He doesn't really care. There are draconian policies in America's cities, but you have an issue with you-know-what and people coming into the country. And I just look at it from the perspective of Democrats. They complained that President Trump was cruel and he lacked empathy, and the same exact things are taking place. Actually, the situation is worse, absolutely worse, in the geographic region of our country that Mark Levin was talking about. You look, there's 16 times capacity. You can go to CBS Market Watch, okay? 16 times capacity in certain facilities. And I keep on saying, you can go, I can't get into it because of YouTube policies, but during President Obama's administration, there was a Senate report. And what took place during that Senate report was even worse than the separation policy, which I was against. I was against that. I think that was, terrible. What took place during President Obama's administration was worse. Inside a facility holding 16 more than capacity. How do you, if you're Vice President Harris or morally superior liberals, if you are, and the same types of things are taking place in these facilities, the same types of things that they complained about during Trump's administration. 16 times capacity, and you have the same types of holding facilities. And yet they just simply don't care. And you still have an issue with the health crisis, even more so, because you can't, there's not really anything that's like, when Democrats say, well, if you don't do this, or if you don't listen to us on every single issue, well, you're causing people to end their lives, or you're causing the demise of others. And it's like, well, there are so many examples of you not paying attention, or you not utilizing. I have to speak in roundabout terms because of the YouTube algorithm, but what Mark Levin was basically saying is when you have an influx of people, and there's 16 times capacity in locations, and the situation is worse. The situation is worse than it was during President Trump's administration. Worse. From a public health crisis or vantage point, it's worse. Does it affect the cities or the counties or the region of the country? Does that affect public health? And it likely does. Again, but you don't really see the emphasis. Media, morally superior, wonderful liberals who look in the mirror and say, God, I'm so much more humane. I can empathize with people more than anyone else. They pick and choose the topics that they like to talk about. So they pick and choose the topics to pontificate and to preach about and to give sermons about and to give sermons on. But you look, that was the emphasis. His emphasis was on that specific subject. I think that I think that Biden will eventually get impeached. 2022 will be payback. Political. I'm talking about political. Impeachment. I'm talking about you have his son's emails that let's read them out. You can actually read the specific emails that Biden lied about. So, I mean, that's one issue where he's just completely ignoring. So, what Mark Levin was saying is that on a certain topic, subject matter, contentious, President Harris, she said, well, I haven't visited Europe, so what's the big deal? I mean, that was the answer. I haven't visited Europe, so what's the big deal? And it's like, well, it's like... they're completely ignoring a contentious issue because it's contentious, and they're letting it get out of control. And it's like you have crime that's soaring, you have inflation, you have a whole bunch of things taking place in the country. You have the same health crisis that was supposed to be like if we had to listen to the experts. It is still front and center. The only thing they didn't like about Trump, they didn't like Trump's personality. That's what they didn't like. They didn't like about his personality. And they didn't like his personality. And they simply didn't like his demeanor. And they ignored record low unemployment. And they ignored wages that were increasing. You can look, just compare the economy. Compare the economy to how it was. Just go ahead and compare the economy to how it was. There's no comparison. We had record low unemployment. President Trump focused on the economy. He was a great president. This is a fact. You can't dispute that. You simply can't dispute that. I mean, you can it's really interesting when you got into a debate with somebody. Oh my God! Suddenly they became a Nobel Prize winning economist. Oh well, and the aggregate numbers. Our debt is rising. Well, how's the debt now? You tank the entire United States economy. How's the debt now? Debt good? We have far more debt now because of the manner in which these experts decided to tank the economy. And it didn't work out because we're back to square one. It did not work out, and they're desperately trying to, control what they can't control. They said, listen to us. If you listen to us, everything will be okay. And we know all the answers. And governors, they enacted draconian laws. It still didn't work. Back to square one in many cases. And instead of simply focusing on an economic rebound, they're doing the same things over again. So you're not building the economy back up. The economy is worse. You have crime that's, soaring throughout the country. A 25% increase. All right, you're probably going to impeach him on the email. So, Dear Hunter, this is from the This is from the New York Post. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. So this is proof that Biden lied. This is proof. And also, one of the emails show the number 3 executive of the company that he worked for, which, of course, there was just no wrongdoing at all, even though he forced out a prosecutor that was about to investigate or was investigating that specific company. But advice on how you could use your influence on the company's behalf. Quote, advice on how you can use your influence. He's never been asked that. Where are the congressional... So you would need, Hunter, you would need the president's son to testify. It's not that difficult. That will be the biggest story in a long time. Of course, the entire media will be galvanized, will completely, of course, the entire American. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So, sorry about that. So the computer, it says right here in the New York Post, the computer was dropped off at a repair shop in Biden's home state of Delaware in April of 2019. Serious? Sorry about that. If you look, ladies and gentlemen, C. Murph starting it off. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. C. Murph, hello. C. Murph, hello. I'm sorry. I apologize for the choppy internet connection. I don't know what's going on. C. Murph, thank you. C. Murph, thank you. If you look, ladies and gentlemen, again, unbelievable. Okay, good. If you look and you just go ahead and ask yourself, well, what is it that he'll be impeached on? It will be almost certainly emails that show that he lied about meeting his son's business associates. C. Murph, thank you again. Then you have the absurd rebuttal. Well, I don't trust the computer repair store owner. It's like, well, he never denied. They never stated these are not our emails. These are categorically not our emails. What they said was, we don't know. That was a way to hide using this plausible deniability. That was a surreptitious way to kind of just hide and say, oh, well, we don't know. It's not really my emails, or it could be. We just don't know. We just don't know. It could be. It might be. We don't know. And could you imagine if you had Hunter Biden testify? That's what's taking place next year. That'll take place pretty quickly, I think. Republicans will win the House. They'll have a mandate. They'll have a mandate to govern, but they'll also investigate President Trump. They also investigate President Biden. They investigated Trump enough. They found nothing. But you look and it's like, this is why 74 million Americans will vote for Trump again. The double standard. They went after conflicts of interest. They don't care about conflicts of interest with Trump. They haven't found any. They have with Biden. See, Biden did not have a lot of money. Where did the money come from? That's the question. He didn't have hotels. Nobody said, oh, I'm watching The Apprentice with Joe Biden. Hey, Samuel, you're fired, huh? Nobody said that. Nobody ever said, hey, you watching Biden's Apprentice? What? Are you? Am I fired or no? What? Come on, man. Come on. Nobody ever said that. He went into one of his, like, his claim to fame was that he wasn't like the typical senator that had millions of dollars. So how did he make all that money? That's the question. The question is, how did he make all that money? That is the real question. That's the real question. How did he make all that money? You don't go, he has something like $8 to $9 million now. They say from speaking engagements and book deals. Could it be from business arrangements? His son's business contacts? How did he make all that money? That's a legitimate question. This is Town and Country magazine. How Joe Biden went from middle-class Joe to millionaire. Forbes. Here's how much Joe Biden is worth. And, okay, you read, Joe Biden earned $17.3 million over 4 years he was out of office. What? How did he earn this money? From what? From doing what? Are you serious? But his net worth is only an estimated $8 million. Why isn't he more rich? What? By the end of 2017, he and his wife Jill had earned $11.1 million. What? Why? They raked in $4.6 million next year, and then $1 million in 2019. Doing what? Doing what? The White House did not respond from to multiple requests about Joe Biden's money. It doesn't even say here how he made his money. It doesn't even say. I have no clue. Let's see. I think I heard it was books. The story of how Biden became a wealthy man, leveraging his fame to sell books and deliver speeches. Are you serious? Have you heard him speak? Here's my hit American. Come on now. Yes, you're like to pay them more. Pay them more. Mr. President, what do you? There's a worker shortage. What? Pay them more. Okay, I'm sorry I asked. How did this man make the money that he did? It makes no sense. How the Bidens earned $16.7 million leaving the White House? Are you serious? So they say books and speaking? A 2017 book deal valued at $8 million. Okay. I find that hard to believe they got $8 million up front. Valued at $8 million? What does that mean, valued? Did they get a check for $8 million? He and Jill earned $3.7 million from their books and speaking engagements. Who wants to hear him speak on anything? Who wanted to hear Biden speak about anything? So that makes no sense. Maybe it's tied to his son's business activities. Oh, just maybe. Because you better believe if it was like Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr., oh my God, they wouldn't stop. And then you have 10% to the big man. You have urgent issue here. All these different emails talking about Hunter, his father, the vice president running for president, and business associates. And it's like, you even have how do you let this happen? How do you just, they can actually cover up something that nobody else would be able to do. This is an example of a mass delusion, like mass delusion. It's like a case study in mass delusion. You had millions of people believing a Steele dossier, and you have millions of people ignoring an actual story. It's mind-boggling how you can get people to focus on something that's a fantasy while at the same time ignoring a legitimate story simply because you have the dominant media narrative. You're able to control the dominant media narrative because you have every single major publication and cable station and social media algorithm on your side. It's pretty unbelievable. It's pretty unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the internet. I don't know what it is, the internet connection or something. But it's like the stream is like very choppy. You have a situation where you have a lifelong politician who suddenly makes millions out of office. You have a lifelong politician who suddenly makes millions out of office, and there's like, I've heard before, like, oh, well, don't you want to condemn Trump's cronyism? Like, what? He literally had to hire people he didn't want as national security advisor, as director of national intelligence. These are people he just didn't even want. When is Trump going to be held accountable? Well, you kept making things up about him. The real question is, when's Biden going to be held accountable? You have more circumstantial evidence to investigate Biden than you ever did with Trump. His emails show that there are clear pay-to-play schemes. His emails show this. It's like right there. What is it that they don't understand when you have an email saying, how can you use your influence on behalf of the company? If it was Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr., what would you say? Of course you would say, oh, well, it's different, They'll say, oh, it's different. Here's a great one. 10% to the big man. Hunter tried to cash in on behalf of family with international deals. This is New York Post. So the deal also listed 10 Jim and 10 held by H for the big guy. Neither Jim nor the big man was identified further. It's like, well, we know who that means. We know who that means. We know exactly who that is. The question, though, is how did you gain, like, you have an $8 million deal, but, I mean, that's another thing. It's like, did his book, has anyone read his book? How many people have read Joe Biden's book? How many Democrats have read Joe Biden's book? Joe Biden book. Let's see. Rolling Stone. This is hilarious. So, like, Biden books soaring on bestseller lists as Americans get reacquainted with new president. Gee, that's bizarre. You mean they weren't interested in him prior to this? Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, yeah, that's really interesting. So, he topped the nonfiction bestseller chart. So, I don't. How did you make $8 million? You topped the nonfiction bestseller chart. Okay, that's fine. You've only been in public life for your whole entire life for 40 years. So, all right. Paul, hello. So then the speaking engagements. Well, that's an interesting topic. Who's paying him to speak? And have you heard the man speak? That's another question. Why would you pay this man to speak? He didn't even speak during the campaign. He spoke like prior. Every time he opened his mouth, it's like a catastrophe that they had to impeach the president on. They impeached Trump because Biden opened his mouth and said, yeah, I forced out somebody who was eventually going to investigate the company my son was working for. Then it was like, oh my God, that's not true. So, fact check. New York Times. What Joe Biden actually did in Ukraine. USA Today. What really happened when Biden forced out Ukraine's top prosecutor? Explainer. Biden allies pushed out Ukraine prosecutor because he didn't pursue corruption cases. Don't you know? He didn't pursue the cases, even though it's none of our business to force anyone out for, you think another country would say, yeah, Merrick Garland, he's going after state governments. You can't do that. State governments have every right to pass legislation that's, that doesn't violate federal law. So what are you doing? Why are you going after? And the Supreme Court already backed legislation saying that Georgia did not violate the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So you know what? We're just going to force Merrick Garland out. What's the problem? Then you have like a complaint from somebody inside government who didn't like President Trump's foreign policy. And he allegedly blew the whistle on Trump. It had nothing to do at all with J-Spot 51. The title is No Malarkey. That's funny. J-Spot 51. Thank you. No Malarkey book tour. At the heart of Congress's probe and the president's actions is his claim that Vice President and 2020 Democratic frontrunner Joe Biden strong-armed the Ukrainian government to fire its top prosecutor in order to thwart an investigation into a company tied to his son, Hunter. But sources, so they don't even refute that. It's just the appeal to authority. But sources ranging from former Obama administration officials to anti-corruption advocates say in Ukraine, say the official, Viktor Shokin, was ousted for the opposite Trump and his allies have claimed. So let's check this out. We have no clue. There's no evidence. Like, the circumstantial evidence points to corruption. But no, don't believe your lying eyes. There are lots of people who say it was completely above board. Well, yeah, how is that supposed to mitigate suspicion? It's very much in their interests. Former President Obama officials, very much in their interest to say that there was no conflict of interest, and he did so for altruistic reasons. Don't you understand? Biden forced out a prosecutor in another country for altruistic reasons because the prosecutor wasn't doing his job. It's not Biden's job, or he never had the authority to force out any prosecutor in any country. That's not what U.S. foreign policy or diplomacy is about. When was the last time this happened? It wasn't because Shokin was investigating a natural gas company tied to his son, which he was. It was because he wasn't pursuing corruption among the country's politicians. What? That has nothing to do with, it's not for us to decide who's doing a good or bad job in another country. We have no right to hire or force out any prosecutor in any country. Does that make any sense at all? Alex, hello. Does that make any sense at all? We're going to force out a prosecutor? We're going to force out a prosecutor. So Biden opened his mouth, promptly put his foot, put his foot right, as he was talking. And it's like, if you didn't have the entire American political establishment going to bat for him, the obvious would be like, okay, in a July phone call, Trump asked the president of Ukraine to investigate Biden's actions. So what? You don't think President Obama was part of the process? It's like you have President Obama's administration who investigates an incoming Trump, and in the minds of every liberal Democrat, President Obama had absolutely nothing to do with it. If the roles were reversed, they would say, "Oh my God, Trump ordered this," and it's like a phone call he knew was being monitored, and if there was this was before he actually ran for president, but even if he was running for president, if he had committed a crime or there was a corrupt motive, then he should be investigated. What is wrong with that? This is an actual event. It's not a dossier that was purchased. It's not a moderate to high confidence assessment from an intelligence operative. It's an actual event that is tied to emails. We should have had those emails. The fact that we didn't have those emails is a big problem. We have emails now that point to exonerate President Trump because they literally say from the executives at the company, how can you use your influence on behalf of the company? And thank you for introducing me to your father. And I give 10% of the proceeds of our business deals to, one can assume, to Biden. So it's like, that prompted a person blowing the whistle to accuse Trump of asking a foreign government to interfere in the election. It's like, oh my God. The only interference would be if he actually was engaged in a corrupt venture, which very likely he was. See, the interference to them, like, they have a Mueller probe. That's not interference. They're very proud that they utilize information from other agencies. From other countries. They had to fly all over the world to gather information on Trump from other countries. That's not interference. Definitely not interference. But, God forbid, God forbid Trump wants to ask another country to see if Biden actually forced out a prosecutor to help his son. Oh my God. I mean, it's unbelievable. They used the help of other countries to investigate Trump. They were very proud of that, too. There were many articles saying, oh, yeah, foreign countries tipped off American intel on Trump. Oh, that wasn't election interference? The notion that Biden, who literally told the world, you will not get $1 billion. And then you know what? Yeah, they didn't get the money. Guess what? And then he even brags that the Ukrainian official says you don't have the authority to do that. They didn't even, within his actual, like, when he spills the beans and actually tells the world that he did something corrupt, and then the entire American political establishment goes to bat for him, the most absurd claim, like, well, he was doing something good. He actually, like, admits that the diplomats he was speaking to told him that he didn't have the right to force anyone out. So the notion that he was doing so for some altruistic reason, is even disputed within his own story. But I mean, the first impeachment was absurd. If we had Hunter's emails during the first impeachment, there wouldn't be an impeachment. It would have proven that Trump was right to be suspicious. He also, like, the Mueller probe is an example of election interference. The 2018 midterms, you had record low unemployment. The country was doing very well. How would Democrats do if it wasn't for if they didn't have the Mueller probe? The Mueller probe there was no reason for that to start other than to interfere in American politics, create this fantasy, this suspicion around Trump, predicated upon not even circumstantial evidence, like a dossier, Comey's memos. Comey's memos are not, like, you're talking about you're talking about a government official who's forced out. That would be like a government official that's fired during President Obama's administration or Biden's administration, writing memos and then starting a special counsel because he's upset with the president who fired him. Trump's assertions contradicted. The actions at the center of Trump's allegations occurred in late 2015 and early 2016, when U.S. aid was critical to Ukraine. So 2015 and 2016, that's when President Obama was in office. So Russia had done all of these things while Democrats were in office. So that should kind of show you that they didn't care about the response from Democrats. At one point, Biden withheld $1 billion in aid to Ukraine to pressure the government to remove Shokin from the Prosecutor General's office. How on earth, this USA Today article is like, how on earth is that okay? Who gave Biden the authority to do that? Did President Obama? Who gave Biden the authority to do that? I'd love to know how that works. How do you justify this? And then Marie Yovanovitch, one of the impeachment witnesses, even said, she testified that, any conflicts of interest pertaining to the president and his son working for a controversial oil and gas company in that country, any conflicts of interest was to be sent to the vice president's office. It's like, oh my God, are you serious? Really? Wow, that's really great transparency and totally not a continued conflict of interest. They knew. But see, again, the best thing, you're hiding in plain sight. Trump and his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, claimed Biden did this to quash Shokin's investigation into Ukraine's largest gas company. They say this benefited Biden's son, who was paid tens of thousands, $50,000 a month, more than that probably. It says $50,000 a month. I think it was more than that. But anyway, their assertion is contradicted by former diplomatic officials who were following the issue at the time. That's not even a rebuttal. That is not even a rebuttal. This is how politics works nowadays. Trump accuses us of this. He's obviously wrong because we have a lot of people who agree that we're right. But it's pretty. You have this man on tape talking about how he was bragging, how withheld, he withheld $1 billion. Biden has no right to do that. He has no right to do that. Why would he even do that? He's absolutely no right to do that. So it's like, And then this was all before the emails came out. Without pressure from Joe Biden, Shokin would not have been fired, said, okay, so there you go. It's like, this prompted a person to just come out of the woodwork saying Trump is asking a foreign government to interfere in the 2020 presidential election. No. Why would it be interference if he did nothing wrong? That's another question. So the mere notion that Biden would have any negative press was enough to impeach Trump. Meanwhile, like a year later, the mere notion that he did anything wrong, that it would be covered, like, at all, it was grounds for impeachment. Meanwhile, the New York Post was actually suspended for the sin of reporting on emails that almost certainly belonged to Hunter Biden. So it's like, it's pretty unbelievable. It's pretty unbelievable. I know this is all thrilling, ladies and gentlemen. It's all very thrilling information. But this is what's going to impeach Biden. It's not like there's no evidence that Hunter Biden did anything wrong, said the prosecutor who succeeded the man that was who was forced out by Joe Biden. You can't get even the reporting. The reporting meant to protect Biden is hilarious. There's no evidence that Hunter did anything wrong, said the new prosecutor that replaced the old prosecutor Joe Biden forced out. It's like, oh yeah, everything's fine. They have such disdain for Trump. That simply saying, well, we have smart people who disagree with Trump, that's enough. The logic, reason, that's not utilized anymore. It's all appeals to authority. Well, we have really smart people that disagree with Trump. So, It's really funny too, because they don't have any policies. They don't have any policies that they can actually support. So they don't have any policies they can actually support. So it's like everything is, oh my God, Trump is corrupt, Trump this, Trump that, oh my goodness. And it's like they don't have anything they could point to. And this all started, it all started when they cheated Bernie Sanders. When they cheated Bernie Sanders, they basically told the world they're a giant public relations machine. And they don't really stand for any policies. And they're not even going to have a functioning primary. So then they lost. Then they spent 4 years blaming Russia. They were wrong about that. But it worked. I mean, you have people who don't believe in the existence of God, but believe in the existence of Trump Russia. Like, if you ask a morally superior liberal Democrat who happens to be an atheist, which is totally fine, they'll say, oh, well, there's no evidence that God exists. Okay. Do you think Trump worked with Russia? Yeah, I still do. Really? Really? Even after Mueller investigated and found no evidence and nobody was ever charged or indicted for working alongside Russia. Which, by the way, the Crossfire Hurricane investigation happened around this time 5 years ago. So this is like the 5-year anniversary. And of course, Strzok and McCabe, they juicy smoliered themselves. All of the Kevin Kleinsmith. Like, what was the point? They couldn't simply allow a peaceful transition of power. That was an actual, like, that was the first moment where there really was not a peaceful transition of power. They try to say that, like, January, it was a horrendous day, but the vote took place that day. So I don't know, like, media is going to try to, like, MSNBC, CNN, they're going to try to pretend that they care about law enforcement when they didn't care about law enforcement for 5 months prior to November. They're going to try to pretend that it was like, Pearl Harbor. God forbid. But the average American doesn't look at it that way. It was a horrendous day. 5 people should be alive. But they didn't indict or charge President Trump. So it's like they didn't indict or charge Trump for a crime. Exactly. Insubordinate, exactly. And so they don't really have, like, what have they done since AOC, since Democrats have taken hold of the House? What have they done? Nothing. Nothing for their voters. Nothing. You're going to have 2022 Democrats. People will be tired of Biden by 2020. They're already tired of Biden now, but people will be tired of Biden. And there will be more information pertaining to his possible the possibility of widespread corruption. There'll be more information. It's also interesting too, like, you have thousands upon thousands of those emails. Democrats can't type an email without, like, a political catastrophe. If they didn't have every single possible advantage, my God almighty, every single possible... The New York Post being suspended, I mean, that's one of the worst things to ever happen in terms of, like, free speech. That's one of the most egregious attempts at stifling discussion and debate, and it worked, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it worked. Twitter, you talk about Twitter, that platform is like a dystopian nightmare. But when Mark Levin, when Mark Levin says that Biden should be impeached, he's focusing on certain topics, but really, when you look, ladies and gentlemen, at like the reasons he could be impeached, there are a number of reasons, or a number of political pitfalls that Republicans can utilize to impeach Biden. You're going to have Trump Republicans take over. It's 2022 is, around the corner. 2022 is around the corner. It kind of feels also like the past year, this year, like everything's moving. It's moving so fast in a way because we're always waiting for life to be normal again. And it just, you have something, you definitely have something to look for. Like look forward to at the end of 2022. So you have the rest of 2021, pretty much all of 2022, and the momentum is going to build throughout that. The momentum among Trump Republicans will build. And who knows what, you're talking about a wounded animal. They leveled all of media against Trump. We'll see if Republicans actually oppose that kind of suppression or that kind of tactic. We'll see. And they have to. I mean, that's an existential issue for the Republican Party. Even for the never-Trumpers who think that, they don't like Trump. Even for the never-Trumpers. Thank you. You're going to see, right now, they really have nothing on Trump. They don't really have anything. You can't really pinpoint anything they have. You can't really pinpoint they didn't find anything with his taxes. So they're now they're now they're saying, well, we're going to get them because of, they don't really have anything anymore. Go type in Trump. I mean, they're really at a loss for, I'm missing I'm missing what's going on in the chat. This is interesting. They're really at a loss for anything. The less outrage they have and indignation towards Trump, the less they actually have in terms of why anyone would vote for them. So it's this really, really negative scenario for their political chances in 2022. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. Sorry for the internet connection. I don't know what it was. The stream was very choppy this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very, very much. To my super chat, thank you, Eric. Thank you so very much. I'll be back tomorrow at around 4 p.m. So be here at 4 p.m. tomorrow, everybody. I will see you tomorrow, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great, great